Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session on perception management, building brand new. My name is Swapnil Kamat. We have Arunima Kamat with us. How are you doing, Arunima?
Good. I'm glad we're recording after a long break.
I was just going to say that we've not recorded in such a long time, and I'm like super excited about recording because we're doing it after so many days, and we have quite a few classes lined up over the next few days. But everyone that's attending, welcome to this session on a very important topic, right? So Arunima, it's so just having done so much of training over the years and meeting so many people, you'd be surprised how many people in the past have asked me questions around the topic of perception management, right? There are two or three topics that are people love asking questions on. One is, of course, how do I manage my boss, right? That's one question everybody loves asking. But the other one people love asking on, saying, okay, how do I manage my perception a lot better?
Mhm.
I think I have a perception problem. I think I have an image problem. I think I have a personal brand problem within the organization. And just the amount of questions that come up around this thing is crazy. So I'm glad that we have built some amazing content on this thing, which will really help clarify all of everybody's doubts on this subject, right? What do I need to do?
Correct.
What is perception management? Is it some like magic potion that I'm supposed to eat? Is it something which is it charisma? Is it aura? Is it, all kinds of questions come up around this, right? And that's what we're here to kind of discuss and sort out. So I hope people have a good time watching this class. No, Arunima?
Yes, we had a good time building it. So,
Yeah, we had a good time building the content. Okay, so let's get started, my friends. Perception management. What is perception management? Perception is what we think about a particular person, situation, or event. Perception management is about how someone creates a favorable impression of themselves to their stakeholders. Now, who could these stakeholders be? It could be a prospective or existing employees, shareholders, customers, or society at large, right? So, this is what perception management is basically creating a favorable, it's a very broad term, but that's the best way to define it, right? A favorable impression of oneself to the people around, right? Now, of course, you can do that by building a strong personal brand. So the whole personal brand and perception management, it more or less means the same thing. So what is a personal brand? Okay, a personal brand, it is how you package yourself professionally, the behaviors, characteristics, and qualities that people associate with your name. So, how do you package yourself? Because depending on how you package yourself, will people either think about you favorably or not think about you favorably, right? So, that's how these two things are connected in a way. So, it is how you package yourself professionally, the behaviors, characteristic qualities that people associate with your name. A personal brand is the reputation that you have at work. Effective personal branding will differentiate you from the competition and allow you to build trust with the stakeholders, right? So it'll really end up distinguishing you from others. It's the reputation that you build, it's how you package yourself. And all of these things are very important, right? Over the years, one of the things that people would often end up saying is they'd say that, I do great work, but the reason why I don't make the kind of progress that I need to is then I don't communicate well enough, or I don't brand myself well enough, or the perception about me isn't that good, right? So this is what they would think, and sure, they would be right about it in some way, right? Because if you want to make progress in your career, you need to do great work. There's absolutely no doubt about that work, but you also need to understand how to in a way present that work to the world, right? Because if you don't know how to in a way present that image to the world, the you present your work to the world is never going to know what you're doing, whether you're doing it well, whether you're not doing it well, right? So both these things are very important: working well, delivering on it, and presenting your work well, right? And if you do both these things well enough, you are sure to make progress in your career, right? All career progress is a combination of hard plus soft skills. Hard is your technical skills, and soft skills is a bunch of different things. And one of the core parts of that soft skills is your communication skills, the program that you're going through, right? And you have to be good at both in order to succeed in your career, right? So understand the importance of this thing. I think any quote from Jeff Bezos is something that we need to take seriously, right? The richest man on the planet. Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? So that's another way of saying your reputation. Why should you build a positive personal brand? It helps you stand out from others. It leads to more career opportunities. It inspires trust in your stakeholders. If you have a positive personal brand, someone is always going to be screening you online, especially if you're, yeah, in all kind of situations people are screening you online, right? Every so often when we send certain trainer profiles to our corporate clients, when we do work with them, every time we send a profile, they will ensure that they screen that trainer online and see what comes up, right? Because they don't want to hire somebody that in a way doesn't know how to manage their own personal brand. And I can assure you that there have been times in the past where we as work better have gotten into trouble because one of our trainers hasn't managed his personal brand well enough and done probably something silly. And although he's a great trainer, does the work well, the perception of him was so bad that he would end up losing the project. It would end up hampering us badly as well, right? So that's how important it is to be aware of, having a positive personal brand even online, right? Today, even when it comes to hiring, at that hiring stage itself, so much screening is done at an online level. Number two, tomorrow, for people that are younger that could want to uh, pursue higher studies, right? Again, your personal brand becomes so important, and what you put online becomes so important. So whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate employee, how you portray yourself both in person and online can make a big difference to your success, right? And I'm sure most of y'all attending this class would agree with that. Now, a quick exercise: pause the video after I'm done speaking, and then you can attempt this. Think about what your current brand is. Share 3 words other people would use to describe you and your current personal brand. What do people say about you, about your work? What adjectives do people use to describe you, right? So just think, what are the 3 words people would use to describe you and your current personal brand? Arunima, why don't you come in? I have a question to ask you. You know what question I
Yeah.
want to ask you. You know me well enough to know what question I
Yes,
want to
I
ask you.
do. That's yeah.
Share the 3 words others would use to describe you and your
Sure.
current personal brand, right? How, just so that people have a flavor of how they need to go about doing this exercise.
Correct. In fact, before you called me on, I was coming on myself. Just
Yeah.
I'll digress a little bit. We used to have a colleague at work who would often call me Japanese train,
Okay.
because whenever a
Japanese
deliverable give
train,
Japanese train, yeah,
train.
train.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because Japanese trains are known for being on time or even before time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So whenever a deliverable would be given to me, I would
Yeah.
try to give it just before. If it was due at 4 o'clock, I try to give it at 3:30 or 3 o'clock,
Yeah.
because that's just something which was exciting for me to try to over deliver.
Yeah.
And he would always address his emails even that, "Hi, Japanese train.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I need from you." So that was kind of, in a way, had become my brand when he would
Mm-hmm.
think of me as a
Yeah.
professional.
Yeah.
Um, I think
I just
otherwise,
stop. I'll
yeah,
just stop you there for a minute, right? Before you tell me your other two. So this is the thing that people need to understand, and we talk about it later. But I think it's just apt to talk about it right now. Is that a person's the perception that other people have about you are based always in some reality, right?
correct.
So it's going to be very rare that people are going to have a perception about you that is not based on reality, right? And now let me, I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but don't forget your other 2 points, right?
Sure.
Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you know what, or I come across as snobbish to people, but I'm not snobbish. I'm actually very, very
Mm-hmm.
friendly. So they'll say, I don't know why people have this perception about me that I'm snobbish when I'm actually very friendly. And what I end up telling people is it is based on some reality. But
Correct.
the reality of what people see, they see probably a certain kind of body language that's not coming across as friendly. They see certain mannerisms that are not coming across as friendly. You're probably not smiling enough, but you could be a very friendly person once you get to know someone, but it's clearly not reflecting in your body language, mannerisms, behavior when you're speaking to people. So don't say that the perception that people have is not based on some reality. You're fooling yourself. It may not be your truth the way you look at it, right? You may look at it saying that I am very friendly, but I'm not coming across in that way. But remember that the perception is always based on some reality, right?
Correct.
Now, people thinking of you as, okay, somebody who's reliable, I think that's the word that would come to their mind, right? Somebody that's reliable, somebody that's consistent, right? Somebody that does delivers what she says she will deliver in some way, right? Now, that image that people have of you is based on reality, right? It's that simple. um Simpler thing. Now, another thing that very often happens, people that are strong at the technical skills, and not very good at stuff like communication, soft skills, or leadership skills, what tends to happen with those people is that they'll say, oh, there's this very bad impression about me within the organization. And I'm like, no, 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 there's no bad impression. It's the right impression, it's the
Correct
right
impression.
perception people have about you, because your communication skills are poor. It's just that you don't want to accept that. And because your communication skills are poor, you're not able to get your thought across in a proper fashion to people. So somewhere people are connected, they're connecting that to your competence and possibly your ability to lead going ahead, right? Because that becomes, communication is such an important part of even leading teams and that entire thing. So there'll be a very rare situation where a person will make a certain impression of you which is not based on some reality as they see it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's that. I'll just give another example before you get right. Again, a personal example. I think a lot of people, if they just met you at office, right, would say that, oh, Arunima is all work and no play, right? And there'd be nothing wrong in that, right? Because that's what they've seen of you, that somebody who's like
Correct.
extremely particular about their work, extremely focused, doesn't indulge in any kind of small talk, stupid talk, really focuses those entire hours on delivering great work. So they say, oh, she's very serious about work, maybe she's a very serious person as well, right? Because they've not, that's the impression, that's the perception that they're going to have of you. But of course, if
Correct.
they got to know you better, if they got to know you on a personal side, they know that there's a whole other side of you that's fun, witty, party. This, you get what I'm trying to say, right? That whole side of you that they wouldn't know, but they are making a perception of you from what they see of you, right? So so
Correct.
so so that's what. Now, on the other side, each one of us, whether we like it or not, as human beings, are always making perceptions of other people. It's
Absolutely.
just very, very natural for us to make perceptions of other people. However, while making those perceptions of other people, I think we need to be very careful in terms of not jumping to conclusions on certain things when we make those
Correct.
perceptions. And at all points of time, knowing that people are much more than one or two words that we often describe them in our head, right? They're much more and much more multifaceted very often than that, right? So don't jump to
Correct.
conclusion as far as the perception that you have about people. Keep an open mind about them. Get to know people very well before you make certain kind of judgments of them. And I think that becomes very important from the person making a perception of other people.
Correct.
Okay, sorry I jumped in and gave a long talk there, but go on.
That's okay. I actually am glad that you did, because I have a couple of things that I want to add.
Yeah,
So moving backwards, like you mentioned, people at work often would think of me as the all work no play,
yeah,
or very focused and just comes to work,
mm,
uses those hours to just work.
yeah,
a lot of them often wouldn't know the social side of me.
Yeah.
To which I will say, of course, there are things I need to work on. Everyone needs to work on, aspects of themselves. But this is also a very carefully cultivated professional image that I've made for myself.
Okay, that's good.
So, I mean, both consciously and perhaps unconsciously as well. Because for me, work is the time when you're coming in, like I said, if you're dedicated, using those 9 hours to really focus on things you need to
Yeah.
get done. That's the kind of
Yeah.
environment I've grown up in. Those are the kind
Yeah.
of perhaps values I've grown up with. So for
Mm.
me, I have like a work side of me and then the social side of me. So that's one
Correct.
element
Correct.
perhaps that you also can, not you,
Yeah.
the viewers can keep in mind that maybe you may want to cultivate different kind of images depending on the situation. I
Mm.
don't know, it may or may not work for certain people.
Mm.
So
I
that's
just have one kind of point to that, right? I think that as far as possible, uh, people just need to be authentic, right? And
correct.
the more authentic you are, the better it is, right? In a way. Now,
Correct.
if you're a leader of people, I'm not suggesting absolute full disclosure to each one of your team members on
Correct.
every naughty little thing that you did when you were their age, right? So you don't need to go
Correct.
that far in terms of full disclosure. But I think one of the worst things that a person can do is try to cultivate a false image about themselves, an inauthentic
Absolutely.
image about themselves, right? I think that
Absolutely.
is something that doesn't make sense.
So when you say authentic, again, the professional image that I have, it's
Yeah.
not a facade, right? If
Facade.
you
Yeah.
if someone says that I'm hardworking, it's because I truly do put
Yeah.
in the hours
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
What would be inauthentic or not genuine would be you try to put up this front of someone who's working all the time.
When you're
That
not.
of course
Yeah.
inauthentic when you're
Yeah.
not correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, like you said, because I have certain aspirations, so I may
Mm.
not want to reveal all sides of me. And of course, I'm also a very private person, so I'll do it
Yeah.
with people who I'm close to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, my point being that when I come to work, there's the work, Arunima, which I am very conscious about, that I have to
Correct.
say certain things to only certain people. And with
Correct.
perhaps the majority of the company, I have to remain in my brand. I want to
Correct.
stick to that brand because when people think of me, I want them to think of those
Correct.
words.
Aspects. Absolutely. I
As
think that makes
correct.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, and I think in terms of other words, you covered a few of them, but hardworking was one. People would often use something like a grammar Nazi for someone like me because they know
Mm.
that's something. So often, because I'm in the content team, a lot of content team members would reach out to me and say, "Is this email? Does this read right? Is this the
Mm.
correct way of saying something?"
Mm.
Night owl, another word that's used for me. Dedicated, focus. So these are words that I wanted, not the night owl, but
Mm.
other words are words I consciously, when I started my career, thinking that these are true to the kind of person that I am, and I wanted to reflect in my professional life. So I then worked on building a brand that comes under these brackets that
Correct.
I've defined for
Awesome.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If I may just add one more
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
you were also talking about how other people may perceive you, right?
Mm.
And I resonated with the example that you gave, which is people may think you are standoffish or a bit
Mm.
snooty.
Yeah.
I thought I was very approachable. I always had this image about myself that I was approachable. But when I came to work, I realized not a lot of people come and approach me, or they may be intimidated by me.
Correct.
So then I utilized Johari window, and I would go up to people who know me really well and ask
Mm.
them that, what is the vibe that I'm giving off? Do I come across as rude? And then they would tell me that not really, but when you're working, you never look up from your laptop and you just have this very like a work face and no one wants to disturb you. And people think that, they don't want to, come and ask you a question because you may get
Correct.
irritated.
Correct.
And so they were then able to tell me things that my outward behavior or my body language was perhaps not really in line with what I thought I wanted to put out. So I wanted to
Yeah.
be approachable. So then I
Yeah.
changed a few
Correct.
things where I would then go up to people and talk to them,
Yeah.
or tell them, if not through my body language, I would drop them text messages saying, come and talk to me if you'd like to. So there
Yeah.
were things that you need to work on to develop the kind of brand you do want to
Absolutely. And
cultivate.
that's exactly what I meant, right? So that's the
Right.
whole thing of all perception is based on a certain reality, right? Which is that
Absolutely.
people don't just have perceptions of another person which is based on like absolutely nothing, right?
Correct.
Of course, the only time it could be based on absolutely nothing is if there's certain, if you don't know somebody directly and somebody else tells
Hmm.
you about that person, more like gossip, right? Where you can make a
Right.
an impression about a person that you've never met in your life, right? Because of what somebody else said to you, right?
Correct.
But barring that, or almost perception would always be based on some reality, right? So I think we've given you quite a few examples and gone into a very nice rant and digression on that topic, but it was very important to address it here. But pause the video right here and write down the 3 words you think people associate with you as your personal brand. Okay, so I hope you've done that. Now, how to build your personal brand, right? Let's jump straight into that. So, Arunima has come up with an extremely catchy acronym, which is called PIE, right? Bake your pie. That's the acronym that she's come up with. And she's divided that into 3 parts where she said, make sure your pie tastes good, make sure your pie looks good, and number 3, ensure that people know about it, right? So these are the 3 things that you need to do as far as your baking your pie is concerned, right? And I think it's a lovely kind of example that she's given. So if you're going to make a pie, ensure that the pie tastes good, ensure that the pie looks good, and ensure that people know about it, right? And if you do this, your pie will be a bestseller. A lot of people will want to come and buy it, right? So what does pie stand for? So pie stands for, if you want to build the right personal brand, if you want to build the right perception that people have, you need to think about your performance, you need to think about your image, and you need to think about your exposure, right? And this is a point that we've just discussed, so I'm not going to repeat it again. The perception people have of you is always based on some reality, right? So we're going to take PIE, the pie, and discuss this further, right? So let's start with performance, right? I think it all starts with that. Ah, very interesting, right? So, performance, build your brand around consistency, reliability, and trustworthiness, right? I think these 3 aspects become very, very important if you want to build a positive personal brand. If you want to manage your image where people think about you favorably, you have to put in the right performance at work, right? So, you need to deliver results, consistently do great work, and excel at what you're doing, right? If you ask me, this is, if you take care of this one thing, um like most things, most other things you can learn, or they'll get taken care of if you kind of really figure out and do this one thing well, which is deliver results. Now, I've discussed this in the past, right? What is deliver results? Deliver results and do them consistently, right? Which means that, for example, if you've been given a target of 100 every month, ensure that you're over delivering, right? Ensure that you're doing 120 every month, right? So that's what you're trying to do. So you're actually doing 20% more, right? So that's the kind of result that you're delivering. The other way often that I put results at is be amongst the top, ideally 5% of people within your department or within your work, and at least amongst the top 10% of people, right? And depending on how big your department is, you need to be amongst the top 3 performers in your department at least, right? And if it's a big department, all the more reason for you to be in that, whatever the 5 top percent, the 10% at the top, or ideally you should be amongst the top 3 performers, right? That there are, and there needs to be a certain amount of consistency that is there, right? It's not like, because I've known a lot of these people, a lot of people where they'll work well sporadically, right? So they will, in every quarter, 1 month they'll do a good job, and 2 months they'll do a mediocre or a poor job, right? So what happens is, these 2 months that they do a poor job, then you bamboo them, or somebody, one of their bosses goes really hard on them, is harsh on them, kind of pulls them up, and then 1 month they put a good performance, and then again they go back to their original selves, right? And if you are this kind of a person who gets results sporadically but not consistently, that's not very, very good to have a positive personal brand, right? Now, the top 3 or top 10% logic is such that if you want to do well in your career, it's but natural that the only way you're going to do well is if you consistently feature in this thing, right? If you are somewhere in the middle and spend all your time trying to build some image externally, which is in a way based on something which is hollow from the inside, right? That's never going to work, right? Or you may fool somebody once in a while, right? But that's not really going to help you. What's really going to help you become a player for the long term is if you're a really good performer, right? And if you're amongst those top 3 people. I've shared in the past this thing connected to cricket, right? Because I'm a big sports fan. So if you look at the highest paid and the biggest brands amongst cricketers, right? The biggest brand in cricket, at least right now, is Kohli, right? Why is he the biggest brand? Because what is his performance on the field? He's one of the best batsmen in the world. Before that, if you remember, in the previous generation, it was Tendulkar. These things never changed, right? Because why? Tendulkar was the biggest brand because he was the best performer of them all. If you look at in cricket, people that are big brands, Dhoni was a big brand. Why? Because if you think of Dhoni, ideally he was a great performer more often than not as a batsman. Given the role that he had, he was a great performer as far as a wicket keeper, and he was a great performer as far as a captain was concerned, right? So he became one of the biggest brands. If you look at today, the other person that's a big brand is Rohit Sharma. Right now, why is Rohit Sharma a big brand? Again, it depends on performance. So there's never going to be a case where you're a poor performer on the field and you are going to do extremely well as a brand outside of the field, right? That's literally impossible for that to happen, right? And that's why we keep going back to saying that, listen, whatever perception you need to build in the end is going to depend on your performance, right? It's going to be connected to that. Yes, Arunima, tell me.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that great giveaway to these brands or
Yeah,
these names that you've mentioned
yeah.
is someone like me who's not a sports fan
Mm,
would know these names. So that's it's a great indicator that even someone who
yeah,
doesn't follow sports, if I can
yeah,
come up with these
yeah,
names,
yeah.
it just shows how big these brands are because they are
Correct,
all you're always talking about them. They're consistently appearing in news
correct.
because of their high performance.
Correct, absolutely. So it's that simple, right? And all the other things you could say, oh, Kohli has cultivated a very good brand about around himself, right? Yeah, Tendulkar is cultivated. Yeah, all that cultivation starts basically by putting in a great performance at your workplace, right? Delivering more than what is desired of you, and that happens, all of a sudden your brand goes. And equally, by the way, right? Equally, what tends to happen in most of these cases is the minute you stop performing on the field, all those brands will go to the next person who's the top performer, right? So keep that in mind. This is not like people have something for or against you. This is just the reality of what things is right now. Secondly, if you want to build a powerful brand, it's just very, very, very important for you to become an expert in your field by constantly upskilling yourself and gaining the required knowledge that is required, right? So in the knowledge economy that all of us are in, the more you come across as an expert, the better chance you have of career progress. If you don't come across as an expert, which comes from upskilling yourself, the lesser chance you have of career progress, right? And I often end up sharing this thing where I say that tomorrow, if you have somebody that comes and says, oh, you know what, I am a PhD in a certain thing, right? We will tend to look at this person more favorably than somebody who's not a PhD, right? Because in modern society, in the knowledge economy, the more knowledgeable you are about something, the stronger your brand there, right? And this is how that happens. So try to become an expert by constantly upskilling yourself. Then the third thing I think that which is very, very important from the point of view of building a brand around performance is deliver on your promises, stick to your commitments, right? Because this essentially is what will lead to you coming across as reliable and trustworthy, right? And I think I can tell you for sure that's the reputation Arunima, somebody like Arunima, is built within the company. And a lot of people that work for Better really strive in terms of doing this, right? If they say we will deliver something by 5 o'clock, they will deliver that at 5 o'clock, right? And if they don't deliver it by 5 o'clock, more often than not, they'd reach out to at least the external party and tell them that, okay, you know what, we were supposed to deliver this, but this is going to get delayed for XYZ reason, right? So the more you deliver on your promises, stick to your commitments, the stronger that your brand will build, right, across that. Now this is true even when it comes to your boss, right? How is your boss going to have a positive perception about you? Is going to have a positive perception about you is if you say you're going to deliver a certain thing, you deliver that, of a certain quality, and you deliver that at the time that you committed, right? And if you do those two things of delivering the quality and delivering on the time, you'll start building a certain brand in the eyes of your boss or super boss, right? And that will help you then make progress as you go ahead, right? So some of these things are so simple. They're simple in understanding. They're not easy to do, right? Because again, to build that takes so much of effort that you need to put in to always deliver on your promises and stick to your commitments, right? Now, the fourth one, demonstrate ownership for your work, right? Again, that creates a positive impression about you for people. To people, what does demonstrate ownership means? It means whatever work is given to you, ensuring that you will take it from start to finish. If a certain work is given to you, you will put heaven and earth together uh, to finish that work or to complete that work or to get that thing done, right? That's the kind of performance you put in. When something is given to you, you put heaven and earth together to ensure that it's done. You take a certain job from start to finish. You'll do what it takes to ensure that that thing happens, right? You, in yourself, and if you lead a team, you create a culture of no excuses, right? If any work is given to you, you treat that work like it's your own, right? And because you treat it like it's your own, you really deliver something which is very, very good, right? So people that have great perception in the eyes of others, they always demonstrate ownership towards their work, right? If they don't do that, if they're known to make excuses, if they are if a work is given to them, then last minute they come up with excuses of why and how it can't be done. That's not building a very, very good brand at the workplace for yourself, right? So always demonstrate ownership for your work and go the extra mile. Right now, why is it important to go the extra mile? Just very, very simple. People only remember the extra that you do for someone else. They just never remember um the regular thing is not remembered. The extra that you do, that is what people will remember, right? And I often give this example, right? Being a trainer, our job requires us to travel a lot, and fortunately or unfortunately, I ended up over the last 10 years traveling a hell of a lot to different locations within India, and some rarely outside India on personal travel, right? And so I'd stay in a lot of hotels, and I remember I was in Ahmedabad staying in I forgot the name of the hotel. It was a Taj group of hotels, right? It was one of these like four-star hotels. It was called the Gateway, right, by the Taj, right? And after dinner, I went to my room, and then I heard a knock on the door, and the chef himself had come, and he said that, sir, we just saw that you had dinner at the banquet downstairs, and this is the first time that you're staying at our hotel, so we'd like to offer you a complimentary dessert, right? And in spite of all the hotels that I'd stayed at, nobody had gone the extra mile for me proactively like this, because it was the first time I was staying with them, right? And in 10 years, I don't really remember my stays in most other places, but here, they created a certain impression in my mind. They created a certain perception in my mind about themselves. They created a certain reputation brand by really doing something extra for me that I will remember like all the time, right? If your boss, super boss, um, has a crazy deadline, or something has come up which is very, very pressing, and you go the extra mile for themselves, you do something extra and help deliver on something for them, now you've created a great personal brand for yourself, right? They're going to have a great perception about you. If it's a customer that's in some soup, right? Especially during the COVID times, and they really need you to go over and beyond for them, and you actually end up doing it for them. Oh, now you're going to have a positive perception in their mind, right? And I could go on and on and on about these examples. If you're not willing to put that extra, if you're not willing to go the extra mile for your internal stakeholders and for your customers, they're never going to have a very powerful perception about you, and you're not going to build that brand. That said, I'm not you need at all points of time we need to be cautious about not overdoing stuff like this, right? Because it can so easily go into people making use of you. It could so easily go into people kind of putting their work on you in a way, right? So don't let people make use of you or take advantage of you in that way. But you need to be very tactful about knowing that, okay, this is the time for me to go extra mile, for my boss, for my super boss, for my important customers, for different stakeholders, because then that's when I'm going to remember them the most, right? And of course, what I'm saying is not rocket science, right? If a friend of yours really needs some help and you go and help him during that time, he remembers that for the rest of your life, right? So that's what tends to happen. If you have a decent friend, of course, you have the 10% that are not like that, but just most people are like that, right? So yeah, go the extra mile, and that always helps you. So on the performance bit, just to recap, number one, deliver results consistently, right? Be amongst the top three performers. If you want to fix anything, by the way, in perception management, if you ask me what is the one thing that I do, I'd say work at being the topmost performer, right? That's it. That's what you need to work at, because you're never going to be able to make progress if you're not at that top three level, right? So be amongst the top three performers, be amongst the top 10, overachieve on your numbers consistently. Don't be those one off sporadic performers. Number two, become an expert at anything that you do, right? That's how you create a reputation for yourself. And this goes to anyone. If I'm a trainer in soft skills, right, I need to constantly upgrade my knowledge so that when I go out, I'm known as an expert on that subject, right? And that really helps. Number three, be the kind of professional that delivers on their promises, sticks to their promises, that you come across as reliable, trustworthy. Demonstrate ownership towards your work. Whatever you take, ensure that you take it from start to finish. Treat it like your own. Put heaven and earth together to get it done. Don't be known as the person that makes excuses towards their work. And the fifth one is go the extra mile for people, right? If you do these five things, by and large, on the performance front, you're taken care of, right? In terms of perception management. Now, the second bit that you need to take care of is the I, which is your image. Now, in terms of this topic, I'm not going to go into great details here because we have already covered these aspects in different classes, right? We've done an entire class on the importance of body language. I'm adjusting my body language the minute I hear the word body language, right? So we've done an entire class on body language. You've been through that. I hope you're putting that into action. Number two, ensure that you're well groomed. And number three, ensure that you follow etiquette or manners, right? There's an entire class on this, there's an entire class on this, there's an entire class on this, right? So all these three aspects are very, very important. Okay, now I'm just going to share a couple of thoughts here, and then we'll move on, right? But I want you all to attend these classes. If you've not selected these classes, please select these classes and ensure that you attend them, right? Now, if you are somebody that understands body language, are well groomed, and know etiquettes, when you enter a room for a business interaction, if you focused on your image in terms of keeping your personality right, it immediately puts the person on the other end on the back foot, right? So if you're well groomed, if you have good body language, if you follow the etiquette that needs to be followed, immediately the person on the other end goes on the back foot, and it gives you an advantage while in a business interaction, right? It does give you an advantage in a business interaction. As a matter of fact, ensuring that you're well groomed, good body language, etiquette, even in personal interactions is very, very important, especially if you say if you're going out on a date, right? It becomes so important that you're well dressed, that you have the right body language, right? So even in your personal side, it's going to really help you create a certain impression about yourself. um, yeah, and a lot of actually leaders, right? And that's, of course, this has got nothing to do with politics, but I keep bringing up Narendra Modi here because I think this is the one thing that he really focused on as the prime minister, as of the like the biggest democracy in the world. I think it's so important for him to be sharply dressed in Indian formals, right? He wears Indian formals, but he's very sharply dressed. He has the right body language, and that tends to give a certain impression to other people, right? And that becomes like supremely important if you want to manage perception. I want you to attend these two. I don't want to do say a lot of stuff here which is repeat of those classes, right? But I'll just share one last thing. um, Very often, say if you're at a hotel, or um, if you're at an airport, that tends to happen, right? So um, you'll see a certain person kind of walking, sitting, and sometimes, whether you like it or not, this thought comes to your head where you feel कि ये आदमी बहुत अमीर होगा, right? Or this person must be somebody really important or rich. Or, these thoughts come to our head almost immediately. And sometimes, of course, the bang opposite happens when you have a look at it. Now, you don't know this person at all, right? And you can't, more often than not, go and check what brand of clothes is he wearing unless it's written on his t-shirt, right? Which is quite rare in clothing, that somebody's written you have brands that like will put a Nike logo on them and stuff like that. But very often you'll just look at people and you'll make these impressions of, oh, this person must be important. Oh, this person must be rich. Or the opposite thing as well, right? Now, where is that coming from? Because you're not interacting with them at all, right? Where is it coming from? It's coming from the way their body language is. It's coming from the way they're dressing, right? It's coming from those two things where you're having a favorable impression of them in a way, right? That they are important. And again, very important for us to remember that in business situations, it's very important for us to come across as a figure of authority. It's very important for us to come across as somebody that is important, as somebody that is powerful, as somebody that is of consequence. In business, it's very important that that's the case, right? If you're an entrepreneur or a freelancer and you're going to meet somebody, you want to give them a favorable impression about yourself, right? That you have your house in order in a way. You don't want to be going as a total mess and not knowing what to wear and how to wear it. You don't want that to happen. So please ensure that you attend all of these three classes. But I'm just here to tell you the impression that you will make. Impression that others make of you is largely dependent also on the way you dress, on your body language, and on your etiquette, right? Whether you like it or not, that's the truth. And deal with the world not as you would like it, but as the world is, right? Deal with the world not as you would like it, but as the world is. Just very often I must add this one more kind of dimension to this. In today, like literally, this wasn't even the case 10 years back, but today even a person's fitness levels uh, play such a big role in the way people perceive them, right? Because if they see that a person is totally unfit, there could be various reasons for it, but a lot of what happens in people's head is they think, oh, this person can't even take his own health seriously, so I wonder whether he takes other things seriously, right? And this is something that plays in people's head today. And I know that it does with just so many people who you'd end up meeting. And you've seen that like a lot of leaders today take a lot of effort. People at the senior level, they take a lot of effort also around their fitness, not just to feel good but also to look good, and give the right impression and perception to other people, right? Yes, Arunima, come in.
Just to link it back to our idea of pie, right?
Yeah.
When you cook something or when you bake something, you'd
Yeah.
want it. One is, of course, like we've already covered the taste aspect for it, but we often spend a lot of time making it look pretty for the Instagram, or no one's going to really comment on it because they can't see how it's going to taste. They don't
Yeah.
know how well it probably smells, but they can see how well it looks, and your likes are going to be based on that. So
Mm.
it just links back to the idea, which is why we come up with that concept that one is, of course, through your performance, you need to ensure that you're doing the right thing and your pie tastes good, but it's equally important that it looks good as well,
Correct.
because that's what people are going to form their perceptions on before they get to know it.
Correct. If you want to run a good restaurant, if you think of it, right? If you want to run a good restaurant, whether you're selling thalis or whether you're selling sushi or whether you're selling whatever it is you're selling at that restaurant, you all of us would agree that both things are important, right? The thing needs to taste good,
The presentation.
and the presentation of the food needs to be amazing as well, right? If you do both,
Correct.
that's when we really kind of enjoy a meal, when both the presentation is good and the taste is good, right? So this is,
Absolutely.
and you have some cooking shows where you can never taste anything that they cook on TV, and people are just looking at, oh, how beautiful does it look, right?
Yeah.
On shows like MasterChef. So that just gives you the importance of your image in the
Yeah.
perception people make about you, right?
Correct.
I think that's very, very, very important. Yep. Okay. I must share this. When I first started as a trainer, one of the biggest perception problems that I had is I looked too young, right? And that was so important. And I've shared this in a previous class. I would not wear suits earlier, so in to compensate possibly the fact that I looked extremely young in that profession, then I started wearing suits. I was happy when I had to wear glasses, because I'm like, okay, finally people will think I'm much older, because they'd always connect in a way age to perception, the perception they would have around in my industry, right, about stuff. So yeah, that's how important it is. Now, we discussed the performance, we discussed the image. Now let's come to the third part, which is the exposure, right? Create both an offline and online presence in terms of exposure. Make sure people know who you are and what you stand for, right? So that's the third part of it. You could make a your pie could taste great, your pie could look great, but if nobody knows about your pie, nobody's going to come and buy it, right? It's that simple. So that's why the exposure part becomes important. Now let's look at offline exposure first. This is something that you can do. Take on assignments and projects that will give you good exposure, right? So typically, ensure that you do this as far as possible. Take on projects that are extremely critical and challenging for your company. Take up stuff which is very, very difficult, and there's a very nice reason why you should do that, because if you take up something which is difficult, critical, challenging, if it fails, people will say, oh, this was difficult anyway, right? It would have failed. But if you succeed at it, that's when you really have the chance to catapult your career in a way. If you keep taking up stuff which is very, very challenging to do, because if you fail, people know that it was tough, but if it succeeds, you become a hero. And of course, along the way, when you take up these projects and assignments that are challenging, your learning curve is huge, right? You end up learning a lot of things along the way, that cuts your timeline of speed at which you will make progress in your career, right? So take on assignments and projects that will give you good exposure. Now, the other thing that you need to do here, try to take up assignments and projects with uh, different people within the organization, if that's possible, right? Sometimes it's not possible in certain organizations, but in certain organizations it is, right? So try to take up these projects wherever possible, and that's something which is important. If these projects do not come to you, be very proactive about taking up these projects, right? Because a lot of times you could see that there is a certain gap which is there, which you realize on the ground that that gap needs to be filled, right? And the other people around you may not realize that there is something that needs to be improved here at a departmental or company level. So identify that thing of saying, you know what, this is how I can make more money for my department or a company. This is how I could save some money for my department or a company. This is how I could increase the efficiency at some level of my department or the company, right? And if you identify that, don't shy away from putting the work. Create a project around that, create an assignment around it, go to the right people and present it and say, okay, you know what, this is what I want to do, and this is how I want to add additional value. And when you go about doing that, so the first situation that I discussed with you is, it comes reactively, take it up. If such projects don't come reactively, proactively go and say, okay, you know what, this is something that I want to do, this is beyond my the scope of work. And sure, you're going to have to put in that additional hard work, but whoever told you that that professional success is going to come to you without putting in the additional work that's required, right? So when you do this reactive or proactive taking up of challenging projects, you tend to get good exposure within the organization, right? When that tends to happen, when that happens, right? Now secondly, take up speaking or presenting opportunities. Again, that's very, very important. If anything needs to be presented, if there's any speaking opportunity which is there, both within your organization or outside your organization, ensure that you take that up, right? And that tends to give you exposure. So we still work with one of the big four accounting firms, right? This is like the number one consulting firm in the world. And they have a lot of chartered accountants that they hire, right? So we would often suggest that those chartered accountants actually go and speak at various forums. So if they were experts, for example, at indirect tax, we would, we'd say go and speak at some forum which is on taxation, and speak about indirect tax. Go volunteer to do it, at whatever case, right? If there is a certain opportunity within the company of teaching or presenting that subject to people, ensure that you take that up. So that's the way you get exposure. That's the way you also improve your public speaking skills, right? So any opportunity that you get within your organization or outside to speak or present, ensure that you do that, because that again will give you the exposure that is required. Okay, now these are some small tips, but ask one question at every meeting you attend. Don't shy away from sharing your inputs, right? These are actually 2 points which are there. This is actually a very, very good technique that my wife and partner taught me, right? So she said that she would often go for a lot of these conferences, and you would have a certain panel that would speak on a certain issue, and at the end of that it would open up for Q&A, right? And she would say that I would be the first person to put my hand up because I would genuinely have questions, but in an earlier avatar I would probably shy away from asking that question. But I realized that as soon as I had a question, if I'm the first person to put my hand up, I would get the mic and I would ask that question. And I know that she's an intelligent woman, so she'd ask a very insightful question, and it doesn't matter whether it's insightful or not, but she'd ask a very good question as seen by the panelists. And then everybody in that panel would notice her, and even the audience would notice her. So post, if when the panel got over, it became so much more easier for her to go and introduce herself and talk to people on the panel, or speak to other, or a lot of people would come and speak to her after that, right? And these are the kind of conferences where you need to network with people, whether they're your clients, your investors, potential employees, potential partners. So that's what you want. You want to interact with different people, and that would really serve the purpose, because she wasn't part of the panel, but she'd ask a good question, she'd get attention from the panelists and the rest of the people, and that would really help her conduct business after that, right? Now the same thing is true in, say, your internal office meetings which are there, small or large, right? If a meeting happens, something opens up for Q&A, you have a question, put up your hand and ask the question. That's how you'll get noticed by people, right? If you just keep quiet about it, you're not. Now I'm not saying that you make up questions, but I know for a fact that every time a meeting would happen, there'll always be questions on your mind, but we just tend to keep quiet about them. So don't do that, right? Now in any other meeting scenario, don't shy away from sharing your input with people, right? So if you have a point of view, don't just keep quiet about it, just put it across in a polite way. And putting it across in a polite way, especially when you have seniors, is you can just say, sir, I have a certain thought around this, and share what your thought, and just say, sir, I want to know what you think about this thing, right? So you're not saying it in a kind of arrogant way of saying I know it all, but you could say, sir, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one thought that I had. Or you could say, this is my thought, what do you all think about it? I just want to know what your take is, right? And that's a good way of kind of putting your thoughts across and sharing your inputs. Right now, build relationships with people beyond your immediate team. So very often we know people in our immediate team, but we don't know people beyond that. So good thing to do is to know people across different departments, right? That would end up helping you. I'd read this lovely quote a long time back which said, if you want to do well in your organization, a lot of people in it must want you to do well, right? If you want to do well in an organization, a lot of people in it must want you to do well. And that really ends up helping when you build relationships across the board. And that will ensure also that the work happens much quickly or quicker when you need something to happen. And of course, finally, offline exposure, attend interesting conferences, events in your in your sphere of work. So this helps you both, to get to know new people, and more so it helps you, get exposure, which can help you become an expert at what you're doing, right? So that exposure really helps you in building the right brand for yourself, right? So these are some of the things that you can do as far as offline exposure is concerned, right? Just quick recap: take on assignments, projects proactively or reactively, any speaking opportunity, presenting opportunity within or outside your company, ensure that you're taking those up. Share one, ask one question at every meeting. Don't shy away from sharing your inputs. Meet people beyond your immediate team and build relationships. Attend interesting conferences, right? So these are the offline things. Now, for our online exposure part, we are largely going to focus on what you can do on LinkedIn, because that is the predominant platform for professional networking, right? And this is not an entire LinkedIn class. I would really suggest that you go on LinkedIn or go online and kind of really learn how to leverage LinkedIn much better to give you to ensure that you get the right kind of exposure. We're just going to deal with a few tips here, right? And this is not an exhaustive course on how to use LinkedIn well, but I would really suggest that you go and do that. There are lots of very nice courses, videos on how to use LinkedIn a lot better. LinkedIn themselves has it, right, for you to ensure that you spruce up your profile and use LinkedIn very well. I would seriously suggest that, right? Your picture is the first thing people will see on your profile. Ensure you choose a professional image, face clearly visible with a smile, plain and clean background, formal clothes, a banner picture, connection to your company or profile, and then headline. And we'll give you examples of each one of these things. Headline is seen immediately below your profile or picture. Include keywords, your job title, area focus, highlight your top achievement, right? Okay, so this is an example of a good, this is the picture. This is an example of a good picture, formal clothes, nice background, a smile on the face. And this is in a way the person speaking at some place. And he also, this is like their company logo or whatever it is, right? So this is like a good picture and banner. Yes, Arunima, come in.
Yeah, I had a stat to share here.
Yes, yes.
So profiles with pictures are 14 times more likely to be viewed by someone.
Wow.
It's a they didn't have the source. I did look for it. It was one of in one of those career websites.
Yeah.
But even without a source, I think it's very impactful that if you don't have a one is of course having an appropriate picture, but if you don't have a picture, then your profile may get missed,
Yeah.
especially if you're looking for job opportunities.
Yeah, and not just job opportunities, by the way. I was just sharing with you that I've been doing a lot of work on LinkedIn off late, right? And
Correct.
basically, searching for people, connecting with people. I've been doing that. And I can assure you that that stat makes complete sense, because if a person doesn't
Right.
put his picture on LinkedIn, I'm not even sure whether he's active, whether he exists, whether he's doing anything on it.
Correct.
It also shows me that the person hasn't taken any effort, so he's already made a certain perception to me of doing that. And at least do the basics right on LinkedIn. That's what I
Correct.
suggest, right? You don't need to go uh, out of your way to do stuff on it, but if you do your basics right, that's good enough, right? And I think a
Right.
profile picture and the banner is a good enough start, right? So this is somebody from our office, one of Arunima's friends. This is, I think, a nice picture, right? A professional picture. This, of course, we at that point of time we have another product which is called Work Better Club. So all our people that put up that banner to promote it in a way. But this is again a nice kind of formal picture and a banner. Okay, these are now the examples of the powerful headlines. So the headlines is what comes here. Okay, now what's the basic rule of your headline? I'll tell you what my headline is, right? My headline is co-founder and CEO of Work Better Training. And then, there's a kind of dash there, and I put India's number one soft skills training company, right? So that's what comes in my headline, because those are the only things that I want to say. So now look at this headline, is a good one again, where he said editor in chief of Shopify Plus, Forbes top 10 B2B content marketeers. This guy's got a few other things on it, but what are the things that you really want people to read or see about you, right? The first thing that you want people to read or see about you, that's something that you can put up. This is another, we found this interesting, quite interesting, which is co-founder of BAMF Media, and he's also put here saying we're hiring because that's something that he wants people to see. And then he's also mentioned that he's a keynote speaker, Forbes 12 innovative founders to watch. So some achievement that he's had, he's put that there so that this headline portion really stands out. And he seems to know a very famous and rich man, which is Mark Zuckerberg. So he's also kind of put a picture with that, right? Now that depending on how much you want to promote yourself, you could, that's something that you could do as well, right? If you know somebody really powerful and famous, I think that that could be a good idea to promote yourself. Yes, Arunima.
So because we are hiring, another thing that you could do if you are actively looking for something, if it's a
Yeah.
job or you're looking for opportunities to speak, you
Yeah.
can probably put that, because again, when before you click on someone's profile, you'll be able to see their name, the picture, and the headline.
Correct.
So if you put something like looking for job opportunities or looking for speaking opportunities,
Hmm.
people will know exactly what is it that you're on, or during this time, what is it that you're seeking.
Correct. What your priority is in a way.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Now, if you see this person's profile, he seems to work in kind of startup kind of a culture where probably wearing a t-shirt is the way of going, right? So he's wearing that, so that's okay. So depending on what your kind of job is, profile is, as far as possible, wear formal clothes. But if not, if your organizational culture is such where you wear informal clothes, then to wear something like this is good, right? Now, this continued, the summary should briefly talk about your experience and expertise. A good summary can be skimmed in 30 seconds or less, includes industry related keywords, core skills, strengths, talents, and interests, written in a professional style, no spelling and grammatical mistakes, answers questions that provide deeper insight about the individual. What makes them unique? How would others describe them? What are their values and personal traits, right? Pro tip, review job descriptions that interest you. Let keywords from there appear in your summary. Okay, cool. Yeah. So, what is the summary to start with, right? There is this space where this is the space that we're talking about, where you write something about yourself. Again, I'd want to bring your attention quickly to the headlines even here, right? So he's an entrepreneur, advisor, investor, co-founder. Okay, same thing here, right? So these are good headlines. Okay, and you can pause this video and kind of read through these as well to get a flavor of how they have done it. And I think most of them follow this broad rule. So pause here and you can read through it. Okay, again, you can pause here and read through this as well. So this is examples of, Arunima thought that those were good, but she thought she would try to give you an even better example of how your LinkedIn summary can be put. So these are, I think, even better. Arunima, would you like to come in and share why you think these are better than the ones that you showed previously?
No, I just wanted to give, of course, different examples. Here, these are more oriented to your skills. I think
Okay.
the images that I found, of course, show you where the summary comes up, but not a lot about the person's skills there. Perhaps they've designed their profile differently. Here, when a person reads your summary, they instantly know, okay, what is exactly your skill or focus area,
Mm.
and some perhaps even some achievements. So to the right, they've mentioned that in 2013, my online brand campaign, so and so. So it's like you're getting some quick insights into this person's professional career, professional achievement, professional life in these 30 seconds to 1 minute.
Mm. Yeah, cool. So yeah, these are, again, you can pause it here and kind of read through them for you to get a sense of how to do it. But again, going back, I'm just going back a couple of slides. This is what you need to do. Can be skimmed in 30 seconds or less, includes industry keywords, your core skills, some strengths, talents, written in a professional manner, answers question that provides deeper insight about the individual, what makes them unique, how would others describe them, what are their values and traits. Yes, Arunima, you're back on screen. Tell me.
Yes. So the important, if you do a lot of research around this, and of course I'll be sharing articles with our coaches. But something that a lot of websites and a lot of experts focus on is the use of keywords, because usually when people are looking for profiles, they're going to use keywords as a search
Mm,
option in LinkedIn. So
mm,
your profile, you need to use the keywords so that you pop up on their in their search, which is why
mm,
it's important if you're specifically looking for a job,
mm,
look for profiles that look for job descriptions that interest you, and then take a word from there.
mm,
Or if you're in a certain industry and there are certain jargon in your industry which are very important,
mm.
you can use those in your summary, so that the moment someone looks for these words on LinkedIn, your profile
Correct.
does show up in their search.
Correct. So if you're a Java developer, for example, you're assuming that a recruiter will type a Java developer if he's looking for something,
Correct, and it
which
should
will
come up.
increase
Yeah,
the possibility of your profile popping up there.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
Makes complete sense. Right. Yeah. Now, the other thing to do is your work experience part. And unlike resume entries, this should be less detail, highlight achievements specific to each role, share metrics and successes. For example, increase sales 30% year over year, or reduced employee churn by 10%, right? And this is, I think you can pause it here and again look at this description, which is very, very well done, which says led a team that managed 50 plus client portfolios, launching the firm's first app download campaign while partnering with stakeholders to minimize risk and streamline client communication, increased annual revenue by 150% and team performance by 33%, right? I think this is a very, very nice description under your work experience, right? Somebody would be really attracted to this profile if he's looking for somebody who's a sales leader, right? So that's the way to do it and make it less detailed than your resume. Okay, now some other tips on LinkedIn: update your profile whenever you make a career move, speak at a conference, publish a new article, or take a new course. I think this is very important to do. Write and publish articles on LinkedIn on the subject that you want to be an expert at, right? We spoke about the importance of being an expert. So, whatever your subject of expertise, you can always write and publish posts on that. Have others share recommendations and endorsements on your profile. So, that makes your profile seem very complete in nature. Join and participate in groups on LinkedIn that are relevant to your stream of work, and actively share content such as a blog post, industry news, quick tips, etc., which will add to your brand, right? So this is something which you can do. A lot of times you may not have the time to create and write and publish new articles, but if there's an existing article, a blog post that you really like, you can share that with a few of your comments on that particular article. And that's something which is in a way a good service that you're doing to the rest of the people, where you're not a creator of content but you're really curating good content for other people to read. And I know so many people that rarely ever write or create new content, but their entire job is to curate, which is to find the best of the best and kind of put a few of their comments there and share that across to people. And that's a great service in itself, right? And that builds your brand in your area of work. So ensure that you're doing that, and often a mix of all these things that are there, right? So these are some of the other LinkedIn tips. Now, just social media generally, although this is not a class in social media, when you Google yourself, what comes up, check on that. If the answer is nothing, you need to work on your online presence. So if you Google yourself, more often than not, if you haven't done anything which is crazily wrong, it will basically, your LinkedIn profile will pop up, right? Your LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook profiles will pop up. So that's why I think the focus more is on LinkedIn. Yes, Arunima, do you want me to complete this, or you want to come before?
You can complete it, then I'll add.
Okay, so if you do get searches, what are they? Is it your personal Facebook profile or your LinkedIn page? Click on the Google Images tabs. Which photos do you see of yourself? Are these pictures that you want professional contacts to see, right? Again, I think this is such a smart tip to put in. All of y'all should do this, because this is what's going to happen when you apply to new jobs, and this is what's going to happen if you want to get critical positions at a senior level. This is what is going to happen if you want to get into good colleges and higher studies as well, right? All these things are going to start mattering. So be very careful about that. See whether you've been mufat on, what Mufat means, right? You've just uh, been a little outrageous in terms of what you say on platforms like Twitter, on some kind of public platforms. Go and check what you've done there, because I literally know of situations of relatively new entrepreneurs that got into a lot of trouble with their investors, because they would put up a lot of politically charged content up, which would again reflect badly on the new brand that they would start. They would alienate a bunch of people and stuff like that, and it didn't go down too well for those people, right? So you need to be very careful. If you take your profession seriously, if you take your business seriously, if you want to make professional progress, you need to take a lot of these things a little more seriously than you would, right? And 70% of employers use Google to check you out, while 70% review your social media profiles as a part of their hiring process, whatever they can see of it, I'm assuming. Yes, Arunima, come in.
I thought I'll share something funny here. It's not
Yeah.
funny. It's a cautionary tale. There's the news around this, and I can share it with our coaches if they'd like. There was a intern rather a lady who got an internship at NASA,
Mm,
and she had put out a tweet. It was a profane tweet, and then someone happened to just comment on it saying that mind your language. And she again replied to this gentleman saying, using again profane language. And it turns out that that person was the Space Council fellow. And then she ended up getting fired from her job. So
yeah.
she was going to go to NASA, but she lost her job because of a tweet.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a cautionary tale because, of course, this is one of those situations which happen once in a while. But the fact that they can happen, and
Absolutely.
people, I'm sure recruiters, I'm sure our own HR team looks up people and their backgrounds before hiring, because you don't want someone
Absolutely.
who's outrageous or creates any sort
Nuisance.
of nuisance, correct,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
outside of work.
Yep. 43% of employers use social media to check on current employees. Okay, this is a fact that I didn't know. Be careful about what you post on social media sites such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Ensure everything that you post or share is in line with the brand you want to cultivate for yourself. Again, is if this is what if your professional brand, if your personal brand on the professional side is something which is important to you, if you really want to manage your perception well that people have of you, you need to do this. Otherwise you can do whatever the hell you want to, right? But if it is important to you, ensure that you do that. And I personally believe that it is very important for people to have a personal brand that will help them make progress, have a personal brand where people will look favorably towards them, which will lead you in turn to make the kind of progress that you want to as a professional working in a company, as an entrepreneur, or as a freelancer, right? It doesn't matter what work you take up. Right now, at the end, basis what you've learned in this session, define what you want your renewed brand to be. Share 3 words to describe the new brand that you want to cultivate for yourself, right? Pause the lecture here and complete the exercise. Your answers will be discussed with your coach during the live coaching session, right? So what is it that you came up with a set of words earlier, right? By saying that, okay, these are the 3 words that people would typically say about me. Now that you've been through this entire session, had a little bit of time to think about it, really think of what are the 3 things that you would want people to think about you, right? What are the 3 words that should come to their mind when you think about you? So it could be in addition to the 3 words that you came up with at the start, saying, okay, this is what people think about me, this is what I want them to think about me, this is the perception that I want them to have, right, about me. And write those 3 words down in addition to the 3 words that you put earlier. In a certain case, the 3 words that you put in earlier could be something, a couple, one of them or 2 of them, maybe not on the right lines. You don't want people to have that perception. So maybe one of the words here is really talking about changing that perception that people have, or it could just be an addition to what you've done earlier, right? Okay, we're done with the session. Please put down your top takeaways, your top 5 action points that you're going to implement from this session. Pause the video here, write your top takeaways, and of course, your top takeaways will be discussed by you with the coach. You will discuss your understanding of this topic with your coach, and then yeah, so that's how the coaching session is gonna be. Arunima, any final words?
No.
Okay, cool. So, like, I just want to share one last thing, right? If you want to succeed in your career, it's a lot like a pie, right? It's a lot like a pie, which means that you need to get a lot of slices right in order to really maximize your own potential. Okay, because everything that we've discussed here is not about you trying to be somebody else. That's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say become the best version of yourself, right? That's all that we're talking about. Become the best version of yourself. So if you're gonna, the image part, for example, if you are fit, you're going to be the best version of yourself, both for yourself and your family. If you're going to dress sharply and dress well, you're going to become the best version of yourself. You're not becoming somebody else. You're just being the best version of yourself, right? If you have the right body language, you're going to become the best version of yourself. You're not becoming somebody. And when you become the best version of yourself, you will, in a way, maximize your own potential that you have, right? And the minute you start maximizing your own potential, you start feeling very good about yourself, right? And of course it will lead to professional success, but the feeling that you will get when you maximize your own potential and you do the best that you can is a very, very beautiful feeling, and that's what we're gunning towards right now. Coming back to the pie of success, if you want to do well and maximize your potential, you need to do a lot of stuff right in a way, and there's lots of other things, but like we said, you need to ensure that you get your performance right, and within the performance we discuss so many things. You need to ensure that you get your image right, and you need to ensure that you get your exposure right, and there'll be lots of other things here which we can discuss, and that you need to start getting a lot of things right. If you think that you will just perform well, of course it's the most important thing, no doubt about it, but there'll be a lot of other things that will be important, right? If you just perform well but can't communicate well, that's not enough for you to maximize your potential and reach where you want to, right? So therefore, do not shortchange yourself, right? Do not sell yourself the wrong story of saying, oh, the only thing which is important to me is this technical skill, and none of these things, other things, really matter to me. And I'm sure if you're attending this class, you're not one of those people, otherwise you wouldn't have signed up for the coaching class. But know that each one of these things becomes very important, right? You say, oh, why the hell does my LinkedIn profile matter? Of course it matters. There's a beautiful quote that says, luck is nothing but being prepared when the opportunity comes, right? Luck is nothing but being prepared when the opportunity comes. And that preparation is your performance, is your image, is your LinkedIn profile. It's each one of these aspects. So ensure that you tick off as many pies as possible, and that's your best chance towards the kind of success that you want to see in your career, right? And succeeding in your career is going to make you feel good about yourself, is going to make your family feel good about you. It's a service that you're paying to the customers of your company. It's something that will help you, your company as well. It helps everybody at large, right? So ensure that you upskill yourself, do the action that is required, and make yourself proud about yourself, right? Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye, see you, hope you enjoyed this session. Bye.